From NBC News, Republican House panel subpoenas Governor Waltz an investigation of Minnesota nonprofit that ran a COVID aid scheme. The group, Feeding Our Future, faces federal criminal charges that it created fake children's names to seek reimbursements for meals they were never served. They say the House Education and Workforce Committee issued subpoenas on Wednesday to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Minnesota Department of Education, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture for how they responded to what federal prosecutors have called the largest pandemic fraud schemes in the country. The subpoenas obtained first by NBC News demand that Waltz, Minnesota Commissioner of Education Willie Jett, and U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, and Agriculture Inspector General Phyllis Fong turn over documents concerning oversight of the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, which is alleged to have misused millions of dollars intended to feed children during the pandemic. There's what, hundreds of companies that were taking money illicitly?
Yeah, there were a lot. And in fact, in Washington state, there was a crazy Nigerian scheme where they managed to abscond with extra unemployment benefits, even though they weren't in the United States at all. There's no way to get those back. But there's photographs of Tim Waltz with some of the Somali Americans who were convicted of this fraud.
And it's $250 million.
It's really a lot of money.
A significant amount of money.
And they took the money to feed hungry Minnesota children.
Allegedly.
And they didn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, they bilked the state out of the money. They bilked all of us out of the money. And they didn't feed any children.
I wonder if this is why Tim Waltz's family are endorsing Donald Trump.
It does seem like perhaps Tim Waltz wasn't actually vetted. You know what I mean? Like
they wanted Shapiro, but after the panic, they just said Waltz, Waltz.
Right. They just panicked after. And Shapiro would have outshined her because he's actually, like him or don't like him, he's actually a leader and he's well respected. And Tim Waltz seems like a total patsy. It doesn't seem like he has any idea about anything. He lied about his military record. He lied about, the way his children were conceived. And it turns out that maybe he was complicit in this. I have no idea, but he's going to have to explain it to Congress.
No, assistant coach Waltz is not trustworthy, and that just becomes more and more true every week. I agree with you. Maybe he wasn't vetted, but also they didn't really have any time, right? This is one of the issues with that Democrats have created for themselves by inserting Kamala Harris and not holding any kind of runoff primary by just saying, well, she's it, and whoever goes with her is who you have to back completely. They put themselves in a position where they didn't have the time, and also they didn't have the critical analysis to really comb through candidates. I think it would have been better for the DNC if they had allowed there to be basically a mini primary and had an open convention where Kamala Harris could have picked her VP or whatever else, but you would have had a bunch of challengers come out, and by the time they got to convention, probably one of the second-tier challengers would have become the VP. And then they would have presented their own record, and I think that would have been a smarter move because you would have demanded engagement from the voters in a way that they haven't right now. They demanded compliance from their voters right now, but they never asked them to actively engage in a process of selecting the new candidate.
Yeah. I'll just say this, just watching some of the videos with Governor Waltz, it's like he has such bizarre mannerisms. Like, I can't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, he's an odd fella. Just watching him kind of do the retail politics thing.
Missouri's not the Midwest, right?
No,
is it?
Yeah, we're a Midwestern state.
So,
I guess Southern Missouri, you'd be kind of like it's more Southern, but yeah, we're a Midwestern state.
So when you look at Tim Walz, you're not inspired. You don't think he's like a friendly dad from the suburbs, because that's what I keep hearing. Like all of these left-wing talking heads are like, well, he connects with rural Minnesota men and rural Midwestern men. He just seems like
his own family.
A dad. Like, what are you talking about? This guy seems super weird.
Oh yeah. Driving around like rural Missouri or just like knowing people out there, like no one is like, wow, Tim Walz.
Coach Waltz.
Yeah, Coach Waltz.
Coach Waltz.
Yeah.
Or like how he was walking around today at that Pennsylvania event in Lancaster, and he was, he wouldn't take any questions, which he was, talking to volunteers or whatever. But one reporter tried to ask him questions, and reportedly the campaign people were like, "Do not interrupt the program," And you have Tim Waltz being like, "Hi."
It's so bizarre. Yeah. But
is this a children's television show?
Yes, it was a program Tim Waltz was delivering to the volunteers of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Did he jangle his keys in front of everybody?
No, I don't think he did that.
Oh. I bet it would have worked.
You know,
what's that?
I think
It's what you
Coach
do for
Walz
babies.
and like
Dangle the keys.
his rule of appeal is like the same thing with Scranton Joe. Is like the Democrats know they're hemorrhaging male voters, so they try to almost gaslight the American people. Like, no, he's just like you. You know, he totally gets like your way of life and everything. It's like, you know, I don't think most people even buy it. But
How old is
Yeah.
he? 60?
He looks at least 65-ish. No,
Let's look.
So that would make him. Is that still a boomer?
well, I don't know.
so.
I think if
Born
you're
in
born in
1964.
so wasn't Kamala Harris also 64?
Yeah, they're boomers. Right?
Yeah. Well, they're the tail end of the boomers because
Yeah.
then Gen X starts in 65.
Really?
Yeah.
Gen X is 65?
That's when it starts. Yeah. No. It's like 65 to 79.
Yeah, she was born in 64.
You're
Yeah.
right.
So
65 to 80
Yeah. So
is Gen X.
Tim Waltz and Kamala Harris are exactly the same age. She looks a lot better than he does. I will say that.
Well, she's probably paid to look that
She
way.
probably has.
Which I respect, you know.
But yeah.
So then boomers
She
are
definitely
81
has some, like-
millennials are 81 and up.
Yeah, that's the millennials.
Huh. Wow. Well, there you go. I guess it's weird because I don't see this guy as being relatable to Gen X
No.
and not boomers either.
No, he just seems to be kind of a big floppy weirdo.
Yeah.
Like a little pudgy.
weirdo talks like this.
Yeah, a little, doesn't really know what's going on. Eats pork chops on sticks. Come on.
Beef and
My kid
cheese
was
And
on
like-
brings
a
shame to
tortilla.
the campaign.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's
Brings shame to the campaign. He's already had several
Tuna and
lying
mayonnaise
scandals.
tacos.
Yeah. My son was like, who eats pork chops on a stick? That sounds like it would just be really dry. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it does sound like that. Yeah.
your son, the culinary expert, is like,
He is
that's
kinda.
disgusting.
I wonder if like when he was
really
doing the taco thing with Kamala, and then he was like, I have white guy tacos, and she's like, what's that? Like tuna and mayonnaise? I'm just thinking about this because like Kamala, have you never had a tuna wrap?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever go to like a deli or like a diner and like tuna
She
wraps
can't
are
even
on the
find
menu?
the Doritos out of Sheets, though.
Was she looking for the Doritos?
No, she sent her minions, Doug Emhoff and Tim Waltz.
Well, she was in it and they threw the chips to her.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
they're
could she not
fun.
find
They're
it?
friends. You know, they're on like this crazy cross
They're
country.
having a road trip. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the DOJ is going after Sheets for being racist for saying they don't want criminals to work there.
Right, great. And that's
wild.
just so ridiculous because how could it be racist to say you don't want criminals to work there?
Because it disproportionately affects black people, according to the DOJ.
I understand. But they're making an admission that perhaps they doesn't actually match their values. It's kind of weird.
Right.
Yeah.
I just can't stop. I'm just wondering who's going to be right in this prediction model. You know, Nate Silver is the stodgy nerd and Lichtman is more, I guess it's fair to say that Lichtman's predictions are just astrology for dudes. You know what I mean? It's like him looking at things and being like, well, based on what I think about these factors, Kamala wins. And we're like, well, he got it right a bunch of times before. That means he must be right now. And then Nate Silver is like, look at all the data, how it's lined up in the last several elections and where we are now with trends. I think Trump's going to win. And I'm going to go with Nate Silver.
Okay.
Yeah. They could have went with Shapiro, but instead they chose Coach Waltz.
I still think they should have picked Andy Bashir from Kentucky.
yeah, you still
He's
like
one
him.
of the well, I don't personally like him, but I think if we're
I remember you liked him
Like,
for Kamala.
I think if Kamala was a serious candidate,
were like
she
a
would have picked
matchmaker.
right. She would have picked the blue governor in a red state, and that would have been more likely to foil her. I mean, really,
But you don't
what
need
she wants.
Kentucky for anything. Like,
But she doesn't. I mean, she doesn't need anything anyways, right? Like she has to focus on Pennsylvania. If she's not going to pick Shapiro, then she's not very serious anyways. But at least Bashir, postures as a Christian. He has a different region of the country. She's basically using Walz as this punching bag to be like, you're a white man and I'm going to make fun of you. That's all he's there for.
He's the sitcom dad designed.
I
to be a
think
loser.
Bashir would probably have more rural appeal than Walz.
And
like, all day every
and
day.
he foils JD Vance in a better way. I mean, they're both
Yeah.
young. They
Yeah.
have young families. Anyways, Kamala
aren't
Harris
we
campaign.
lucky?
Sorry you didn't take my advice.
Yeah, aren't we lucky they didn't?
Yeah.
Although, I mean, the obvious choice was Shapiro, even outside of that.
Oh yeah.
Well, because he's
I
actually.
actually
you know,
think that we
a
would
ta-
be
he's
in a little bit
political
of trouble if they had picked Shapiro, because I think had Shapiro been picked, I think PA would probably be going blue.
Wow.
Because I think Shapiro is fairly well known in PA, and I think he's well liked just because he hasn't been in government for that long, so he hasn't really done anything too controversial that has turned public sentiment against him.
Yeah, and Nate Silver's prediction was He said that if Kamala Harris does not win Pennsylvania, her chance of winning drops to 4%.
Yeah.
So this is a win or like nothing. It's all or nothing in Pennsylvania, and they went with Waltz.
Yeah, pretty
That's
weird.
crazy.
Pretty weird.
And I think you're right. It doesn't seem like they vetted this guy.
Yeah, it seems like skipping Shapiro was like a desperate attempt to appease the anti-Semites who showed up at the DNC and protested and burned American flags anyway.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.